Hello, I'm here with City Hall correspondent, columnist Dan Fumano. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Harold.
Hey, you've been doing a couple of pieces this week on a situation at City Hall involving the mayor and one of his advisors and natural gas. Just sort of what's the elevator pitch on that one?
Yeah, so it goes back to July in the summer. Excuse me. In the summer, Vancouver City Council made this kind of surprise move that there was no prior notice or anything that they were going to do this. But on the floor of council, they introduced an amendment and approved it by a narrow vote to basically directing city staff to go away and work on amending the bylaws regulating kind of new buildings to repeal a ban on using natural gas for heating and hot water in new buildings. So this is something that the previous council a couple of years ago had approved this new policy that was going to sort of, after a certain point, ban the use of natural gas for heating and hot water in new buildings. You're still allowed to use natural gas for cooking, but not heating and hot water. And the idea was to reduce pollution, carbon pollution emissions going forward. It's part of the city's kind of climate goals. So anyway, the current council in July gave this surprise direction that, caught the public off guard. People did not know this was coming and quite upset some people. Other people applauded it, of course, and some people were upset. But we didn't know at the time, I don't think it was widely known in the public, that the mayor's senior advisor, David Graywall, who, last year was the highest paid employee in the mayor's office, he's also concurrently the director of two different privately held natural gas companies based in Vancouver. And so once, we learned that, we reached out to the mayor's office and tried to get some details. We reached out directly to Mr. Graywall. He's declined to talk to us, but we confirmed some of the details. The mayor's office provided us with some information and said, we're confident that David's roles with his outside businesses don't affect his role at City Hall in any way. And, we tried to get some clarity. Was he involved at all in these discussions around natural gas policy, or did he recuse himself? Did he separate himself from anything to do with that? And the mayor's office explained to us that, talking about natural gas policy is just a standard part of his job here. So apparently they have not seen any reason for him to remove himself from those conversations. But some of the councillors from the other parties outside of ABC have seen that as an issue and believe he should have recused himself to avoid at least the appearance of a conflict.
Right. Now, whether it is a conflict, that is something that would be determined by whom?
My understanding is that it is the city's auditor general who investigates potential conflicts or, other kinds of serious misconduct by city staff. So the city has an integrity commissioner who's an outside independent lawyer, and she investigates complaints regarding possible conflicts involving councillors and the mayor, so elected officials. So the integrity commissioner, which is a relatively new office, it was just created a few years ago, she investigates complaints about conflicts by politicians, but the Auditor General, which is also a relatively new office that was just created a few years ago, his office investigates complaints, whistleblower reports, or anything like that that involve serious misconduct with city staff.
Do you know if the Auditor General, or if they do that on the basis of only if they receive a complaint, or are they proactively looking? Like, would he look at your story and decide that there's grounds to investigate?
Well, I don't know if he would think there's anything in my story that's grounds to investigate, but my understanding is that they can respond to complaints, whether it's from maybe a staff member blowing a whistle on another staff member, or members of the public. So they can respond to reports or complaints that are filed. But I believe the Auditor General can also initiate their own investigations. With some exceptions, they're actually not allowed to do audits of certain bodies like the library without the invitation of because it's got its own independent oversight body. Anyway, that's a bit of a digression, obviously. Okay. But my understanding is, yes, the Auditor General can, I believe, initiate their own investigations if they see fit. And they actually don't take direction from council. Council can ask them to look at something or other, but the Auditor General doesn't take direction from it. It's set up that way specifically to have that level of independence.
Okay. And so do you know, was the Auditor General in a position to tell you whether he's investigating Mr. Grewal?
No, I asked him, and his name is Mike McDonnell, and he told me yesterday, Wednesday. He said, to his knowledge, his office has not received any complaints at all involving Mr. Grewal. So there's no indication that there are complaints about this at all. There have been people, in the public, criticizing this decision. Politicians or ex-politicians or other members of the public have kind of criticized the way the mayor's office didn't see fit to sort of recuse Mr. Grewal. Just yesterday, I spoke with the former mayor of Toronto, David Miller, who now works in sort of climate policy, climate city policy stuff. And anyway, he was commenting just in his role as the mayor of Toronto. He said the facts that he's seen reported, it certainly seems to him like a conflict of interest. And if you say that, well, the impact on Mr. Grewal's business, it'll be relatively small or it won't be a huge impact on his business. To Miller's mind, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's small or big. If it makes an impact, it's an impact.
Right.
And that was Miller's view, but obviously the mayor of Vancouver has taken a different view of this, and his staff are comfortable that there's no problem.
The other thing that Toronto has, and that the BC government has, the federal government has, that Vancouver does not have, is a lobbyist registry.
Exactly. And so actually, coincidentally,
effectively David, is a place where anyone who wants to speak to an elected official. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so David Miller actually campaigned on the idea of creating a lobbyist registry at Toronto City Hall. In 2003, when Miller was running for mayor of Toronto, he campaigned on that idea. He pledged to get it set up. They got it set up during his time as the mayor of Toronto. It's been running there ever since, 15 years or whatever it is, 16, 17. He says, it's like anything, it doesn't solve all problems or anything, but he says it's been very useful and it's very helpful, adding an additional layer of transparency. So after our story came out earlier this week, one of the non-ABC councillors, one of the Green councillors, Pete Fry, so there's only 3 councillors who are not affiliated with the mayor's ABC party. Pete Fry gave notice, publicly announced that he plans to introduce a motion trying to set up a lobbyist registry in the city of Vancouver. And so at a meeting later this month, in a couple of weeks, we can expect Councillor Fry is going to introduce that motion, and that will be debated. At the same meeting earlier this week, one of the ABC councillors, Lenny Joe, gave notice on his own motion about a lobbyist registry as well. The important distinction is that Councillor Joe's motion seeks to make a request to the province, ask the province to set up a lobbyist registry and oversee it. And Councillor Fry is saying several Vancouver city councils have made that same request to the province over the years. The province hasn't done it. I guess they've got other things going on. And there's nothing stopping Vancouver from just creating their own lobbyist registry. And there's strong precedent because other cities like Surrey did it more than a decade ago, and it's still in operation. And the city of Kelowna more recently has got its own lobbyist registry. So the city can create its own lobbyist registry. And there's arguments that, it would be more efficient or it'd work better if the province does it. Yeah, and I think people might agree that the province would be better suited to do it. But Councillor Fry is making the argument it would be nice to have that transparency at City Hall and not wait for the province.
Okay. I don't know how it would be. More efficient in the sense you could set up a registry for all municipalities provincially as opposed to one city. I guess, because I don't see it as more efficient necessarily, or even necessarily. I guess I don't know how much it would cost for one thing, for either way. But yeah.
But so Councillor Joe, when I spoke with him briefly at council this week, he said, the key thing is these lobbyists aren't just lobbying one city. They aren't just lobbying one city or one party. They're not just lobbying Vancouver. They might be lobbying elected officials in Burnaby and Surrey and Prince George or whatever. And so you could maybe effectively see who's lobbying in which different cities. And so that was part of the argument.
Oh, I see. And so that would be akin to the Elections BC campaign disclosure requirements, right? So you have them all in one place, and so you
Yeah.
can see who's donating
Easy
to
to-
which
yep.
candidates in which cities
Yep.
in that regard too. So I guess there is that makes some sense. But also, Councillor Fry makes a good point. If it hasn't happened to this point, I guess we'll have to see who gets elected
And-
on October 19th, but that's certainly not a campaign promise that I've seen by any of the candidates running in
No,
this.
I've not heard this. And this has also been the subject of resolutions from UBCM over the years. You know, various times UBCM conferences have passed resolutions asking the province to do this. And I mean, obviously the province has a lot of different priorities and lots of different things going on. And yeah, as you say, we're in the middle of a provincial election. I don't hear this as one of the issues. There's a lot of other issues we're hearing about, but not this one.
Right. All right, Dan. Well, that's great. Thanks for getting us up to date on that. And we'll watch for your further reporting on this and connect with you again next week.
Great. Thanks, Harold.